Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10 Live. You're here with JP, Quentin, and Caleb. What's up, guys?
What's going on, guys? I think this game probably should have been a little bit more separated, but, win's a win. It's a divisional rival. Broncos have a top defense, so, I'm happy it's done because it was a little stressful.
It was.
I agree. I mean, it was a little stressful, but in the end of the day, the Chiefs were actually kind of over to overpower the Broncos with consistency and everything, and they were able to figure it out in the end, so it all worked out.
Yeah, I noticed there were some things that went on during that game that I was really impressed with. Especially, and honestly, I wasn't able to get on the show last week, but due to traveling. But looking at last week and this week, the defense has really stepped up. They're playing a lot better than they have in weeks prior. They seem to be gelling really well. The offense looks pretty good. There's still, Mahomes with 360-something yards. The guy just doesn't stop. He's a machine. Yeah, he threw an interception, but it is what it is. I think that route that Watson ran was a little off, and it just kind of happens. It's going to take a little time for everybody to gel to the way he plays. But for the most part, the offense looked really good. I noticed that they didn't run the ball hardly at all. Yeah. I don't know how many snaps they got as far as the snap count was concerned on rushing, but it was minimal.
If you include Patrick Mahomes' scrambles, they had 16 rushes.
Yeah.
It was for 46 yards. They did not run the ball really at all in this game.
Yeah. And that's concerning because there was a couple of points. It's like if you just would have ran the ball, the drives probably would extend. Instead of having 3 or 4 3-and-outs in a row, they probably would have been able to save some of that. So,
I think part of the problem with that is, and when I talked to a couple of guys, they said that a lot of times, they're expecting the run on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, especially when you got a McKinnon and then a Pacheco that, for the most part are going to get that, the yardage. So they kind of feel like they're going to, I guess, trick play their way out of it to a degree. But I agree that, there's times that I think they should run, especially when you got a guy that, and McKinnon that just is amazing, but you got Pacheco that just tears it up. He pushes his way through no matter what. And one thing I noticed about Pacheco today, and I was really excited, and I noticed it last week, is that he is following his blockers really well compared to before where he just bullnoses his way through and, pushed the pile forward. He's following his blockers. He's making the cuts he needs to make to get into the open field. And that's something that we were hoping he was able to do, and he's been able to do that. So, it's coming down to the wire now. You got one game left. You've got, a relatively, I don't know if you're going to say easy game because no divisional game is easy. No matter how you look at it, it's not easy. It's just part of how when you face somebody twice a year, they are going to know your tendencies. And regardless of what the Broncos did last week, it really means nothing compared to playing a divisional game.
And that's something Quentin and I were saying on the podcast is like, this is going to be a divisional game. The Broncos still have a top 5 defense. This stuff's going to happen. They're not going to go in there and blow them out 45-0. Those are rare. The game's going to be a lot more closer because of just the way you see the Broncos play in this divisional game. The Chiefs have probably won the last 15 games against the Broncos, but each and every one of them have been difficult at times. So it's not just going to be a cakewalk.
Definitely not. I will say this. When you look at the offense, he threw the ball to 10 different people today, which that's what everybody knew was coming. He said he made it very clear that he was going to spread the ball out, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's spreading the ball out. I don't have any complaints about the way the offense is playing. You have to get those guys gelled, especially when you're coming into the playoffs. So they have to be ready to go. And if you're going to play a team that's subpar, which there's no doubt we tend to play down a little bit to our opponents. You can't play down to a divisional opponent no matter how bad they are because they know your tendencies. And that's just kind of how it is. But for the most part, the offense did really well. Kelsey, just get this out of the way. Kelsey had a little bit of a hipper, a flexor in his hip, but he's fine. Snead, from what I understand, is okay. He had a little bit of a rib injury, but he should be okay. At least that's what they thought when it happened. And there's really no major injuries. Thuney had a little bit of an ankle issue. We'll have to see how that goes and how that plays out, but we'll get there.
He came in for a little bit, but then was outside. I figured they're probably, my guess, they would just arrest him.
Yeah, that's definitely the most concerning out of all the injuries, because Snead and Kelsey came right back in.
Yeah.
On their next opportunity. But the Thuney one, seeing a guy come back in, and he's been a warrior his entire career. This was the first year that he had missed a game. He had an insane consecutive game streak going on up until earlier in this year. So, you hope for the best, but he is one of your more solid pieces on the line. He's one of those guys that you can depend on him, and see him go down this close to the end of the season. You want to be as healthy as you can, and from a team standpoint, you really hope that Thuney can come back and really come back at full potential, because one of the things that you don't want to see is him come back and he's not fully healthy and either re-injures the ankle or makes it worse or anything like that. That's always concerning when you see an offensive line roll his ankle like that, is that you just don't know what the extent of it is.
And also, when we look at Orlando Brown, when he got hurt, Thuney filled in for left tackle. So obviously, Thuney can play multiple spots on the offensive line. So there's not really another guy I think that could play another spot on the offensive line. But Thuney, I mean, he's a very, very reliable guy, and they got to figure out what they're going to do. Maybe put PWT possibly, but they'll have some time to figure it out. And they're probably already looking to possibly sign someone off the street if possible.
I just want to say this, that Orlando Brown did a hell of a job today. I was watching a lot of his stuff, and even there was a couple times he would lose on the play, but he was able to recover. And that's something that we haven't seen from him at all really this year, is his ability to recover. A lot of times he'd get beat and he would just get outmatched, especially on some of those swim moves or some of those outside moves. He would get beat on a lot of those speed rushers, which we've talked about throughout the year. But today when he got beat, he was able to recover. And Mahomes didn't get sacked at all today, and he really didn't get hit a lot today either. So shout out to Orlando Brown. He's received a lot of criticism from me, from Chiefs Kingdom, and I think everything, at least that I said, I feel like was a legitimate criticism of his play. But I'm gonna call him out when I feel like he did a good job, because there was a lot of plays that I think earlier in the year he would have lost that play, and Mahomes would have either had to move out or he would have been hit.
I agree. I noticed a couple of people complaining about MVS. I don't know what people expect of him, but he wasn't brought in to be a short yard receiver. He was brought in to be the deep threat. If the ball is in his vicinity, he's usually going to catch it. And he's pretty quick-footed. He's got quick arms. He's got big hands. He can usually grab. And he grabbed one right after somebody complained about him. But, I mean, that's just kind of, look, you're going to
I think the issue, JP, and I don't mean to cut you off, but the problem I think fans have, I don't really have an issue with this, but him and Mahomes have not been connecting on the deep ball like Rodgers and MVS were doing up in Green Bay. And that's going to take some time to get to. And I think they can get that figured out maybe in the playoffs. But I guess fans are expecting more deep plays down the field from him. But they've only been with each other for 17 weeks plus wherever they've been in the offseason. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I feel like MVS will be fine at the end of the day. He's going to be here for another year. It'll all work out. I'm not worried.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with him at all. He tends to get a lot of criticism for things that is really not his. What's up, Thiz? What's up, Philip? Really aren't his issue. It happens a lot. I mean, I've seen people saying we need to create. We'll get into this in a minute, but there's conversations about Butker. There's conversations about Chris Jones. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what people are thinking. I don't know why they assume that the things they assume, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Looking at this game, Mahomes had a ball, a pass batted down, caught it, almost got a first down out of it, converted the third down by the end of it. Denver punted a lot in this game. No matter how you look at it, they were in the first half, they were punting. It was just their life was punting. Again, Pacheco following his blockers, which is something that we've been waiting for, and he's now doing it. Thank God.
That's why he deserves more run plays.
He really does. 16 run plays is not the greatest. I like the little pick that Kelsey tried to move, when he tried to pick the ball up off the ground when Mahomes was under pressure. That was nice.
He must be joining Patrick Mahomes at those acting classes.
Yeah, exactly. But all in all, I think the defense did really well. They were at 253 yards at the half. Mahomes had 253 yards at the half, or 256, which is pretty solid. Second half, they dropped off a little bit, but when teams make adjustments on you, it's going to happen, and you have to adjust back, and we did. In the last 2 weeks, I've noticed that we've done a really good job of making adjustments, and I'm pretty happy with that. I won't say too much of what I heard going into next year as far as the defensive coaching situation is, maybe, I should say, but I did hear some things. So we'll see how that works out. But right now, the defense, as far as, I don't know what you guys think, but the defense, I think they played really well. I can't complain about how they played.
I agree with you there. I think the defense has done a lot these last couple weeks. They've really stepped up. I mean, you're dealing with a team that may not be the best on paper, but they have some playmakers. And to see what they're able to do, did they give up 2 rushing touchdown passes and a passing? Yes, that's going to happen, especially in a rivalry game. One of them, you could argue, if it wasn't for the special teams, it shouldn't have happened. But regardless, when the defense needed to make a stop, players like Chris Jones, a Snead, a Carlos Dunlap, Colin Sanders stepped up in the Chiefs' time of need and really helped them out. And because of that, I really have a lot of faith in our defense moving to the plus against some of these tougher teams.
Well, I would say outside, the defensive line played fantastic today.
Unbelievable.
I batted down passes are an underrated stat in the NFL. The ability to essentially steal a play away and to, hit a ball down where, maybe you can get an interception. We saw that almost happen where a ball was tipped straight up in the air and you had 3 red jerseys around there who almost were able to get the ball. And then just even if you don't get that, it's just an incompletion without giving any wide receiver a chance to get their hands on the ball. So batting down passes at the line is stealing a possession away or stealing a down away from the opposing offense. And it's fantastic to see not just Dunlap doing it, but George Karlaftis is starting to get his hands up and is starting to make an impact in that, area too. So this defensive line from that standpoint played really well. There was constant pressure on Russell Wilson all day today, and that came from a multitude of areas as well, from Chris Jones to Karlaftis, once again Dunlap. So there are a ton of guys who, may have done some stuff that is not going to show up on the stat sheet, but we know they made plays. Like that very last defensive stand where Chris Jones was able to get up to Russell Wilson and force that incomplete pass. He didn't get the sack, but that play was made because of Chris Jones and his ability to, once again, when you need it most, to just come through and make the play. And that's what this defense has been able to do. I've been very impressed with the pass rush over the past, really since the bye week. They've been able to get pressure on guys and been able to make it home. They walk out of here with 4 sacks today, and they're finally, it seems like everything's starting to click there. The corners today played outstanding, in my opinion. We had McDuffie had that fumble, which, came in clutch because you could really start to feel some of the momentum switching over to the Broncos side, and to just shut everything down and to steal a possession away from Denver right before the half, I think was fantastic. Thornhill was all over the place.
Yes, he was.
He was making plays. He was popping guys. So you could just point out, and of course, Nick Bolton played
a monster.
As he always does. So
he had 17 tackles last week.
Yeah,
against the Seahawks.
Yeah, he
I
did.
mean, 17 tackles. That's insane.
And he had 10 tackles today.
Yeah.
So I feel like, he's continued to play all over the field. And this defense really did play well today. I think there's a lot of individuals that had great games, but if you just going down on the defense overall, I think there's a real argument to make that this was one of their better games of the season. And I know
I
they
think,
gave up 24 points, but
well, I think last week and this week were the two best performances they've had. Last
yeah,
week, without a doubt. But I tell you what, Fizz is on here. He's on the 100-yard dash. He does a show with Chiefs Focus. A really good show, by the way, all of NFL. And he said Karlaftis is maturing in front of our eyes, and he's right. He really is. He's not only getting down his technique, his speed off the ball is there. He's learning how to make the cuts in the backfield to get where he needs to get instead of blowing by, the offensive player, whether it be a running back or the quarterback. I really enjoy watching him play and watching him mature as the season's gone along. And look, people can say what they want, but that guy is a straight up animal. He's going to do a lot of things in this league.
He has like 4 sacks in 5 games or something crazy like that. He's done really, really well. And because of that, that's really helped our defense as a whole. Because, like, as Quinn and I and you, JP, have said at the beginning of the season, it's just like kind of Chris Jones and Donald. That's it. Now we're seeing other guys, and Karlaftis starting to be the other guy that's been kind of getting the rotations, getting all these batted passes as an underrated stat. Credit to Quentin, but also getting the sacks that have been very timely. And because of that, I think that's been really helping the Chiefs defensively front forward, because in years past, that's kind of where they struggle. And I feel like they run into like a Joe Burrow again with all the understanding, the knowledge and understanding the game they have now. They should be in a better spot.
I agree. I mean, I look, Dunlap, for 34, almost 35 years old, is one of my favorite players. I was so excited when we signed him. I've said this numerous times. And he's been in the backfield or batted down a pass. Well, I think he's batted down a pass in every game he's been in with the Chiefs. And he's been in the backfield multiple times in every game. This guy just doesn't stop. He's just a motor. And he's very intelligent. He knows where to be. He reads the offense very well. And that's something that we just don't see, and we didn't see in the past. And now we have that. And it sucks that he's 34 years old and the Chiefs have their tendencies of shying away from older players, because I would love to see him come back next year, because he's done such a great job with us.
What's crazy is how late he was signed by Kansas City, because he was signed, if you guys remember, after the first practice at training camp.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy that the Chiefs were able to pick up a talent like that, an impactful player like that, so late into the offseason, and that he really has flourished on this defense.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get into something really quick. So there were 2 mistakes on the special teams today, both of them involving Butker.
And the Kadarius Toney fumble.
Well, look, it is what it is. The special teams are struggling a little bit, but here's my thing. Everybody needs to get off Butker. It was proven again today that there's an issue with the way the ball is being snapped and held. It's in the first one, that was obvious. It was absolutely obvious. The second one, the ball was blocked. Period, end of story. It was blocked. It was facing the wrong way when it did get put down, but it was blocked. That was not a shank like everybody wanted to say on Twitter. That was a blocked kick. Period, end of story. A blocked kick. And everybody has to get off this thing. He is at 88% right now. He's top 3 in the NFL. Go out there and find me one person that has been injured and played injured the rest of the season and is 80% of what he is. We tried it. It didn't work. I'm still waiting for a couple of people on Twitter that I posed that question to, and they've yet to come back with an answer. It's not all him. Is he having his issues because of his injury? Yes, he is. But the ball has to be placed correctly.
No, and I agree with you. I just looking back kind of last year, there were games. I'm not saying it's on, but there were games where it wasn't on the hold, or he just seemed to have messed up an extra point here or there every couple games or a field goal. And yeah, hey, we want him here. I just noticed there's been a decline in the special team unit as a whole. And I feel like Butker isn't part of it because I feel like there have been some issues that there have been because of him. Now,
And there
is it all been him? No,
no.
it hasn't. It's a team effort. For what we're seeing, there's been an issue between Winchester, Townsend, and then also Butker. Something has to be figured out because the Chiefs want to make a playoff run. They could lose a game due to a bad snap on a field goal, a missed extra point. I mean, a lot of those issues. So this is something that needs to be fixed. And this is weird because Dave Tobe never has really had a basketball teams unit until now. Last year, you could say, yeah, they made some mistakes, but this year, it's like the doors are just blown open. It's like there are all these different issues. So I'm hoping that something gets fixed. But one thing I noticed during the game is that Andy was talking with Tobe before Butker missed that field goal. So I think he's like, chill, man, you guys got to figure it out. Because the defense is saving your butt, and the offense in the end did a little bit of saving too, just due to some of these issues we've seen kind of week in and week out. Not saying it's everyone, but it's a team effort, and there have been some issues, unfortunately.
And if you think games have been close up to this point in the regular season, all of that condenses in the playoffs because, it's truly become sort of the best of the best in the NFL. And you really can, 1 point here or 1 point there in the regular season may not be the end of the world when you have the best offense in the NFL, but a missed PAT can really cost you a lot going into the playoffs. So I do think that this is something that the Chiefs need to figure out. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think there's a simple solution, at least not that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I will say this too, that maybe one of the most underrated parts of the offseason that we didn't talk about enough was that with all of these players that left for the Chiefs, there was a bunch of free agents that left Kansas City. That's why we were able to have so many new rookies and stuff on the field, is that you lost a lot of your long-term special teams guys. And I think that's why we see our punt and kickoff teams struggle at times too, is just because, Daniel Sorensen and all of those guys that were here for years, Ben Neiman, were on the special teams. And they're special teams veterans, and then you get a bunch of new guys in here. So I think that has to deal with that sort of the special team side, is that you do have a bunch of new guys in here. And so, even though it's late in the season, you're still going to see some of these mistakes just because they're newer to the system. And then on the kicking side, I'm not sure what the solution is there. I do think that it's not just Butker's fault. That first one, we saw there that, the snap wasn't great. And then the second one, it was just a block, but that's going to happen in the NFL. You have superstar athletes making superstar plays.
Well, we got some people answering in here really quick. Let's look at this. Todd, you says Todd just needs to straighten things up, tighten it up within the guys. That's all. Phillips says, I agree. Taub's has heard it all season. It's true. And, one thing Phillips said here is Winchester and Tommy need to practice. Excuse me, guys. I got a bad throat right now. Got sick in Kansas City. He says, I saw Winchester having some problems snapping on the sideline last week. And then, what's up, Chiefs Live? What's going on? I agree. Look, when it all boils down to it, you've got young guys that have stepped into a role that they're really not used to. A bunch of new guys that have stepped into a team and a scheme that they're not used to. So you're going to have some issues. The kicking, look, it is what it is. It just needs to be cleaned up. Whether it's the snap, which it seems like a lot of it is, whether it's the hold, which it seems like a lot of it is, and the fact that Butker's not 100%. But he's still leaps and bounds better than, all the other starting kickers in the league. So, there's 29 other kickers that aren't as good as him, no matter how you look at it. And I don't know if there's anybody on a practice squad right now that can step in and take his job. We tried it twice, and neither one of them could do it.
Well, that's, when I wrote my article about Butker last week or the week last week, if you look at his field goals inside of the 50, he was an average kicker at worst. So we're to the point where I think Butker is receiving a lot of the fire. And I think that's just because, there's there's not a lot of nuance out there about the kicking game, and I understand that it's not the most exciting part of the game, and so people just don't understand all the mechanics for it, and so when
So
you see
many
a missed field
mechanics.
goal, then you're just going to blame the kicker because he was the one that threw the ball or tried to kick
Kick the
it.
ball.
It's
Yeah.
like when it's like when an interception is thrown. A quarterback's the one that throws the ball, so they're going to get blamed for the interception, even though not all interceptions are created equal. So I think,
Exactly.
yeah, I think that's where some of that's coming from. It's just not understanding how
The
the whole
game.
system works.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I know everything about football, but I'd like to know that I know more than that, and that's what I'm trying to do and just explain it to you. I do think
Yeah.
that it's more than just Butker. In fact, I know it's more than just Butker, and that the whole system seems to be messed up.
And that's something I'm hoping that they can figure out, because if we look at how special teams have hurt teams in the playoffs, look at the Minnesota Vikings back in when Randy Moss was there. They lost the game because of a missed kick. Look at the Packers last year. The offense stalled out. The defense kept them in the game, but they lost the game due to special teams issues, a block punt. I think something else happened on that game too. So I'm just hoping the Chiefs can figure it out for a long-term success, which I think they will, but it's just a little skittish. But I think Quentin brings a great point. All those guys we had that were veterans, that were special teamers, aren't here anymore. And that's a point I never thought about. And that makes sense because that's probably the reason why you see block kicks, missing blocking assignments, and things like that.
Um, you know, I just had a text from a guy about Butker. Um, I guess my biggest issue with all of this is that, and I'm not gonna look. It is what it is. Fans are going to be fans. It's just part of being a fan. But
Fanish for fanatic.
exactly, I mean, if you don't understand the game, you don't understand all the mechanics behind each position that they play, especially a kicker. I mean, I would love to have anybody go out there and try to kick a 59-yarder on a bad ankle when you got 300-pound guys rushing you and the ball's not placed correctly, and you've got a tenth of a second to get the ball up in the air. That's pretty hard to do, no matter how you look at it. But I'd hope that the players understand that these are fans that have never really played the game, and maybe some of them have, in Pee Wee and high school or whatever. But when you get to this level, it's a lot different. So we just have to remember that I had to laugh at a few fans today on Twitter just because one guy said Butker sucks. He shanks everything. He absolutely does not shank everything, and he absolutely does not suck. It's just part of being a fan, I guess, if you don't really understand it. I'm not really concerned with that part of it. I'm more concerned with the guys going out there and doing what they need to do to get better, I guess, is really more how I feel about it. And I think they're going to. The defense has already stepped up in a big way. They're already gelling very well. They put the right players in the right positions. Colin Saunders is an animal that cannot be stopped. The guy is fast. He's elusive. He's athletic as hell for a 5 or 6 foot, 338-pound guy.
And
He's
he can do
athletic
backflips.
and front. I mean, the guy is, I don't know, man. The dude's an acrobat, but
And he's a team player. He
he really is.
He was doing an interview in the locker room after the game today, and the first thing that he was talking about is how he wants to stop the run so they can get into pass rush situations and he can get some of his teammates sacks. And that's the mindset that you need from a nose tackle. A guy that's just, I'm going to stop the run. I'm going to eat up these blockers. I'm going to close this hole up, and I'm going to let the other guys go in and make the plays when it's 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 9, because we're not letting the running back up the middle here. If you're gonna get yards on us, you're gonna do it from bouncing outside. You are not running between these two gaps.
Here, and I moving on to this next one really quick, because there's been some very adamant fans about trading off Chris Jones. I'm going to go backwards for a minute. Back in March, I got a little source that said, we have it on our show to this day, it was the beginning of March, and they said that we were going to trade off one of our key players. My first assumption was probably going to be Jones. The only reason I thought that, because I didn't see them making a Tyreek Hill trade. I couldn't get a name, and that was something that normally doesn't happen, but that was like hush hush, don't say a word. We're not going to say a word. It's just the way it is. So we put it out on the show, and when assumptions are the worst thing you can do. We didn't really say it was going to be Chris Jones. We just threw out names that when you think about key players, your key players are Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Chris Jones. Those are the first three that'll come to your mind. So I didn't see the Tyreek Hill trade coming. And it did, which made perfect sense. Now, I'm going to explain this for this guy that I'm sure is listening and doesn't want to chime in right now. Why would we extend Chris Jones right now? Okay. First of all, he's having the best season he's ever had. Second of all, he's the number one defensive tackle in the league. And in one of your statements, you said because he's going to be declining in a few years. Okay, well, you sign him to a 3-year. You extend him on a 3-year deal. That gives him 2 more years in Kansas City. If he's still playing at an elite level, you can bring him in for another season. Extend him 1 more year. You're still saving yourself that cap hit. But go out right now and find me one person on the street in the league that's available today that will replace a Chris Jones. You cannot do that. You're never going to find that. There's a difference between trading off Tyreek Hill and trading off a Chris Jones. It's two totally different positions, different players, different sides of the ball. When you have a quarterback like Mahomes that can make everyone else better, then you can go ahead and get rid of the most dangerous guy in football. Because Mahomes just passed 5,000 yards this year. Why? Because not everybody is fixated on Tyreek Hill. He's spreading the ball to 10 different people. He's had 11 games out of this season that are over 300 yards. 11 games. Over 300 yards. He's still top 3 in over 20-yard passes. I think he's got a few, I don't know how many, over 40-yard passes he has. Russell Wilson has 1 pass this season over 20 yards. The end. So when you talk about trading off a guy like Chris Jones that is the catalyst of your defensive line, and you built a defensive line around him to make him better, you don't get rid of a man like that. It's different when you're talking about an offensive player versus a defensive lineman. We've made do. In fact, our production is higher than it was last year by getting rid of Tyreek Hill. You're not going to find someone on a defensive line anywhere in college or the NFL right now that's available, or somebody that's sitting on a couch hoping that his agent calls him, that is better than Chris Jones. It's not going to happen. He loves Kansas City. He wants to stay here, and he will restructure to stay here.
I would argue.
So get off that bandwagon.
I would even argue that you said he's the catalyst of the defensive line. I would expand that further. I would say he's the catalyst of the defense because he truly is a guy that you have to push resources for, and a guy that every time you get in the film room, you have to say, we have to stop that guy. That's the guy that's going to kill us if we do not do something about it. And he's having such a great year, and I don't want to see what this defense would look like without a Chris Jones. He is so impactful. And like we brought up earlier in the show, is that even when he doesn't make the play in the box score, he's making the plays just to get other guys to make the play.
That's a great point too, Quentin, because one thing I've noticed with Chris Jones, like you said, he makes everyone better. And as Chiefs fans, people have always been like, well, he's not getting enough sacks. He's a defensive tackle. That's not what's going to happen. What we've seen is because what he's been able to do week in and week out, getting sacks but stopping the run. And then we see today he's been doing things like going on the edge, going multiple parts of the line. I mean, you could argue say he's the captain of the defense at this point because of what we see him do week in and week out. And my opinion is this, and Philip, and you guys probably agree with me with this as well, but Chris Jones should be Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, constantly what he's done throughout this season, he has done so many great things. he hasn't really had a down game yet. May have been some plays, yes, but for the most part, he's got some help around him. He's able to do what he's been able to do. And because of that, has really, really helped him, but also bolster his teammates and the whole team as a whole. Because the defense in the run game struggled the last couple years. Now they're doing really, really well.
Yeah, you cannot expect. Look, everybody complained last year because they said Chris Jones had no help. He was the only guy out there besides him and Frank Clark. Frank Clark wasn't 100% last year. We all know that. He's still not 100%. But again, he's another one that I would take his 80 over most guys' 100. So when you break up a line and you take away your best defender, you're going to have problems. It's that simple. You're not going to find somebody to fill his shoes. The man plays interior. He plays the edge. He's an animal. He knows how to get past people without struggling. And he's double teamed 98% of the time. You're not going to find another guy. And Aaron Donald he's 31 years old. Okay. This is the worst year he's ever had, and he's second in the NFL. This is the worst year he's ever had, and he's top 2. You cannot get rid of a Chris Jones. For anyone that thinks we should, you don't understand the game, and I'm not trying to be rude, but it's just part of the mechanics of football. Not everybody is replaceable, and you have to have that continuity. It's just very frustrating to see this stuff because he loves Kansas City. He absolutely loves it here, and he doesn't want to leave. He will do what he has to do to stay.
And I know, JP, you and I had this conversation last year. It's going to come to a point where the fans may run off some players, possibly. Just
they have
constant negativity.
Yeah.
I mean, we see this happen with some of them, but it's kind of like at the end of the day, it's like it's a football game. Chiefs aren't going to win 45-0. That's a rarity, honestly.
Not in today's
You're going
age.
to have to basically be like, well, there's going to be some good players, there's going to be some bad players, but for the most part, Chris Jones has been very well and has done pretty good. So if there's going to be a bad player, if he misses tackle, great. He'll figure out in the playoffs, and I have that confidence in after what I've seen him do each and every season.
Well, and it's frustrating when you see people that's, even you see analysts do it all the time. That, well, it was, Tyreek's last year here, he had, I think 5 drops, 3 went for interceptions, or 4.
Yeah, and he won the ball a lot more.
And he wanted the ball more.
That makes no sense. You're already getting the ball as most of anyone else, but you want the ball more?
Exactly.
You have to spread the but you have to spread the ball around. You can't just give it to one person.
You're too predictable. I guess my point is that nobody ever put the blame on, nobody said, oh my God, we need to trade Tyreek. Oh God, it's time for Tyreek to go. He sucks. That's not what people do when it comes to a guy named Tyreek Hill. When you have Mahomes, how do you doubt him? Hard Rock tagged us in a tweet today, and it says, and they had a great video up actually about all the guys that doubted Mahomes, something that Philip had done. We had Brad do it, and everybody in the national media doubted the Chiefs to even make the playoffs this year. To even make the playoffs. The Raiders are going to be great. The Chargers are going to be great. Even the Broncos were supposed to be the number 1 team in the division next to or maybe number 2 if the Chargers came on strong, which they, of course they didn't until now. They're getting healthy, and they made the playoffs. I'm glad they did. They deserved him. Look, I like Justin Herbert, and I think that just saved Staley's job. The fact that they made the playoffs saved his job. But when you have to worry about saving someone's job because you haven't made the playoffs in 3 years with that particular quarterback or that particular group of guys, and then you go out and you spend all of this money to bring in players that end up injured, that's what we don't have to worry about. We have been relatively clean the entire season when it comes to injuries. We really have. Everybody just has this 5-year-old mindset about, day-to-day stuff and all the stuff with Eric Berry and all the things that went on. This is not that football team. We're a young group of guys that are learning as they go, and it's going to take time for them to gel, and they're starting to gel. And I have a feeling when it comes to the playoffs, you're going to see a totally different football team. You're going to see a more intense football team. You're going to see guys that are out there, especially the young guys that haven't sniffed the playoffs, haven't seen that atmosphere.
Or
They're going to
received a
play with,
playoff check.
yeah, yeah,
For some of these guys, like a Pacheco, like a playoff check, that's going to be more income that he's made just from the playoffs than his entire salary.
exactly. So these guys are going to come out with more intensity than anyone wants to give them credit for. And I think that's where everybody that puts these tweets up and says these negative things, then they get deleted because they make mistakes by saying it. Bosa's back now with the Chargers, which that's a good, it's going to help them a lot. I think we need the rivalry in our division because we don't want to be the Patriots. Okay, I'm sorry, but we don't. We don't want to be the Patriots that went 20 years with having a crap division and they were just guaranteed 6 wins a season no matter what. We don't want that. We want to be able to have the tougher schedules with the younger guys and prove that we are the better coached team with the best quarterback in football. And that's what we are because we had a very tough schedule and we're 13-3, no matter how you look at it. Something that was posed today, and I want to bring this up really quick because it was brought up about Russell Wilson. And I think it was their GM that was making this comment. And he said, firing Nathaniel Hackett wasn't a fix Russell Wilson situation. It was a fix the team situation. I think Russell can be fixed. You're talking about a 33-year-old quarterback that was supposedly top elite quarterback in this league, and now he needs to be fixed. This is out of their GM's mouth. I think we can fix him. Okay, well, if you just now have to fix a quarterback at 33 years old that's been to a Super Bowl, that has been to playoffs numerous times, and all of a sudden you have to fix him, there's a problem. That proves that he wasn't the quarterback everybody thought he was. Now, today, I noticed one thing that somebody had mentioned to me today. It looks like he's gained weight. He does. He looks a lot heavier than he did in years past. Today was the first time I'd actually seen him really put something into a run this entire season. He put a lot into that run to get into the end zone. We don't have to worry about that because no matter how you look at it, Mahomes is going to make it work. He will make it work with whoever we have. And he's done it time and time and time again. Since his first year as a starter, he has made average wide receivers better. We have above average wide receivers that are all basically new. And you have to take all of that into consideration that he has done all of this with the top 2 toughest schedules in the league, and he's 13-3. And then you got McKinnon that, look, 5 touchdowns in 5 games. Come on, man. I mean, everybody is playing up to par.
He leads
I can't complain.
Running backs and receiving touchdowns.
I mean, I don't know how anyone can complain about what we have going on right now. Even if we didn't make the Super Bowl this year. Just saying. If we didn't make the Super Bowl this year, I am not that upset because we have a great football team going into next year. And that's something that we have to look at moving down the line, is that we are building for the future as well as building for now. Most teams can't do both. They either build for the future or they build for now and they throw all their eggs in one basket. We're building a pipeline, so we'll have multiple Super Bowls moving on down the line. That's all I got to say.
And I think when you look at the Chiefs, they do a good job of preparing for the future, but also in the present. I think with what the Chiefs have now, they have a very, very, very good shot of making the Super Bowl this year. Yeah. Now, granted, if everything in the playoffs work out well, but like McKinnon seems like a prime Damian Williams from what we saw back when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I mean, what he's been able to do week in and week out, Pacheco, MVS, I mean, all these different guys, the rookies, I mean, they're making big plays. And because of that, you can argue that's the reason why the Chiefs are at the point they are. And I think really when we look at the end of the day, yeah, no one's going to win 45-0, but sometimes these divisional games are going to be close. That's just how it is. So I feel like just moving forward in the future, when the Chiefs are going to play the Raiders next week, that game may be close. Also, the playoffs, like Quentin said, that narrow margin is going to be from this to this.
Yeah.
So a lot's going to happen. It'll work out. It'll work out at the end of the day. There's no problem.
The Raiders right now, from what I understand, Derek Carr did request a trade. He has a no trade clause in his contract, so that means he can go wherever he wants. I have heard that it's going to be the Colts numerous times this year. That this was going to be, prior to all this happening, and I've mentioned this on the show, that he was going to go to the Colts as of next year. The reason he had a job during the John Gruden days, and I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, he's actually a decent quarterback. He's an above average quarterback. The reason he kept his job as long as he did is because David and John are close. They're good friends. It's really what it all boils down to. McDaniels doesn't care. If you're not cutting it, you're done. And it was a strategic move on McDaniels' part.
That's the Patriot way.
It is. And honestly, here's the thing. It was a strategic move on McDaniels' part. Because, think about it. You got a coach that just came from a team that has won numerous Super Bowls. And you are supposed to be the offensive guru. Yet you couldn't get your offensive going. With the number one wide receiver and a good quarterback. Now,
the number one running back.
And the number one running back.
Because I think Josh Jacobs is going to end up with the rushing title this year.
I think he will too. So what he did is he basically probably had it in the back of his mind that, I remember what happened in Denver. How can I fix this and save my job one more year? Where's my job security going to come from? Grooming another quarterback. And that's what he did. He made I can't down the man for it. I don't like him. I don't like anyone that just blatantly cheats and then does the things that he does, but it was a strategic move on his part. Now Carr will be gone next year, like we've talked about all year, which we knew he was going to be gone, and he can pick where he wants to go. Now, here's something that was posed to me today, and I didn't think about this until today. Miami. Tua has now had 3 concussions in one season. Carr may do very well in Miami with the weapons that he has and a decent defense. Now, am I saying that's going to happen? No, but that was something that was posed to me today about a place that a landing spot for Derek Carr, because Tua may not be. We'll just say he may not be playing much longer if this continues up. They are going to test him, from what I understand, to see if he has something going on. It was mentioned even during the show, and we talked about this on prior shows, but during the game today, they mentioned a new helmet that they're developing, because quarterbacks usually get hit in the back of their head is where their concussions usually stem from.
Only somebody has been saying that for literally the entire year.
Yeah.
I wonder who has been suggesting that possibly quarterbacks should be getting a different kind of helmet to protect them from getting hit in the back of the head.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know a guy, but
I know this guy. I do know a guy that said that a few hundred times. Might be on the show right now. But if you guys remember, in 2017, Alex Smith was the guinea pig for the helmet that they're wearing right now. He was the first guy to wear the helmet that the quarterbacks are wearing right now. And, it hasn't worked out so well. So, I don't know. We'll just have to see how that plays out. But in the grand scheme of things, you've got a few teams that Derek Carr could go to. I would not, if I had my choice to pick where I was going and a team offered me a spot, I would probably definitely go to Miami if they offered him a spot. Because where are you going to go and have that many weapons and be able to somewhat thrive? One other thing that was posed to me was that he did mention numerous times that if he wasn't a Raider, he would retire.
Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Don't think that's going to happen.
We can talk about this more on our shows later in the week, like on Tuesday when we talk about the rest of the NFL, and on Thursday before the Raiders game. But I aired my laundry on the situation last week on our show with Caleb. You weren't there, JP, but I aired my thoughts on it, and I don't like the move, just generally speaking. But
look, a lot of people said the same thing. They didn't like it, but look, it is what it is. The guy's leading the league in interceptions. He hasn't had a great season, so we'll just have to see how it plays out. But as far as the Chiefs are concerned, right now we're the number 1 seed. If Buffalo loses tomorrow night, we're staying the number 1 seed. We have to win out. Buffalo has to lose at least one game. Period. So, Cincy, even if they won out, they couldn't beat us because they're a game behind us. So, I'm thinking we're going to get that number 1 seed. I don't know about you guys, but I have a strange feeling that Cincy might beat Buffalo.
I'm on that train, and this is not just like the homer. I hope that this is going to happen. I think that the Bengals are a better team than the Bills. Josh Allen continues to struggle with interceptions. Yeah. And we know that if you turn the ball over once against the Bengals, they're going to take advantage of it. And I think that their defense is creative enough to confuse their scheme up in the Buffalo offense. And I think that Cincinnati's just a more talented team on the offense side as well. They've got a couple of guys that are on there. Jamar Chase is a top 5 receiver in the NFL. T. Higgins is, he's a guy that could go to another system and possibly be a 1. I think he's benefiting right now from the Juju Smith-Schuster type deal where, when Juju Smith-Schuster was there in Pittsburgh early in his career, he had Antonio Brown there, and Brown was the number 1 guy. And so Juju was able to develop as a quality wide receiver without having to deal with getting all the traffic shifted his way. So I think we're seeing something similar to that. So I think, Cincinnati's a better team, and that will be a Monday Night Football I will have to watch. I can't stand Troy Aikman, and just that whole setup that they
just put it on mute. That's what I do sometimes.
I probably will. When Joe Buck sings on the broadcast, I was done. So
it's well, just think about this: if Brady does retire and goes to Fox, like he's supposed to, we're gonna have to hear his voice, and that's something that I am not going to.
I promise you, it is better than Joe Buck singing Christmas.
It probably will.
Anyways, do you guys want to get into our MVPs of the game?
Definitely.
That sounds good.
Okay, Caleb, you want to start with? We'll go offense and then defense.
Yeah, I'm gonna give my offense MVP to McKinnon. What he did: 2 big touchdowns, 2 big plays, receiving. Just looking at the way how Andy redesigned it up, I mean, he was pretty much basically wide open every single time. Also, his run game was phenomenal, too. The limited runs he got worked really well. Did we see what we've seen from McKinnon so far this season? He's going to be very helpful in the playoffs with the 1-2 punch between him and then Pacheco. So I say McKinnon is my MVP.
Who you got, JP?
Well, I had McKinnon. I mean, it's really kind of hard to not say McKinnon. I mean, he played out of his shoes, really. But you can't use Mahomes because it's Mahomes, even though he's probably going to get shunned this year for MVP, which he shouldn't. But I would almost have to go Kelsey. If it's not Mahomes, it's Kelsey. And let me go backwards. Let me take that back. I'm going to give it to Juju. I am. I'm going to give it to him because the guy had like 74 yards on 6 catches. So I'm not going to take anything away from what he's done. He's done well. Every game he plays well. It is what it is. If it's not McKinnon, in my opinion, it's Juju. But who's yours?
I've got Kelsey. And I think McKinnon is really the obvious choice here, but I don't like to repeat it. Repeat decisions. So here was this quote that Andy Reid gave to the locker room after the game was over, and this is in reference to the Mahomes-Kelsey connection. He said those two are on the same page. The last play was the play they both wanted. They have the same connection. they have a certain connection. Excuse me. And I just think that we continue to see that. It's week after week. Maybe it doesn't necessarily happen in the biggest moment, or maybe it's a 2nd and 7 and Kelsey's running his route, then Mahomes goes into the scramble drill and they just find each other. I want to say that there's plenty of games like today where you need a first down to seal the game. I'm throwing it to Travis Kelsey and he's going to be open and he's going to get it. Yeah. So there are just tons of times where this connection continues to work. And I think Travis Kelsey, the connection that they have is just phenomenal. And I don't think there's anything like it in the rest of the NFL.
There's not. There's definitely not. So we can move on to defense.
Caleb, do you want to go first?
Sure. I won't take the one everybody's thinking. I'm going to say my defensive MVP. I'm going to say Juan Thornhill. Just to hit 6 he was doing today. The great things we saw in coverage. He's really become his own. Kind of see him as the guy in the safety room. I just think he's a great player. And just everything we've seen he did, especially some of those hits and those pass breakups. You can also even make the argument to give to Justin Reed after the things we've seen. But I think Thornhill's done a great job helping make sure nothing has been really going over the top.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. A few weeks ago, I called out the safety room because they just never seemed to make big plays late in the games. It just never seemed like the safety room was really making impactful plays, generally speaking, over the year. And I think that today was a great example of proving me wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. Juan Thornhill really played his butt off today, coming in making plays. He had 6 total tackles. He had a tackle for loss. The guy was just all over the place, and I have no problem with you giving it to Thornhill.
Yeah, he's a beast. He played so well. It was insane today. He was just everywhere. Phillip has got – it's a toss-up between Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie. I am kind of on that same bandwagon. I think Chris Jones probably should get it, but I am going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to give it to Carlos Dunlap. And I say that because the man is always in the backfield. He's always creating havoc. And at his age, to be able to come out and play as well as he does week in and week out, it just, to me, is just, he's an anomaly. He's like a James Harrison style guy that just doesn't ever stop. So I'm going to give it to Carlos Dunlap. Chris Jones, of course, is an obvious. He's so damn good. Carlos, man, I don't know, dude. He's just picked up this whole scheme so well. I got to give the guy credit. He's so friggin' good in every aspect of his game, and he's so intelligent. He's just extremely intelligent, and that's what I think is just, your intelligence gets you everywhere. So, but I will say this before I quit. I watched Frank Clark today get off the ball faster than I've ever seen him move, and he's the fastest off the ball on our defense. And he jumped so quick that I thought he was offsides. And I went, oh, man, he's offsides. That was the first thing that went in my head. But he was so damn fast off of the ball. I'm like, wow, did he just do that? And I honestly think the refs were second-guessing whether he was offsides or not. But I don't know. I just have to give it to Dunlap.
He had a nasty, just a disgusting swim move today.
He did.
I don't know how
he did.
I don't know how you could just straight up went on the inside. That was just, I don't know how you can even attempt to block that. I will say that I did see that from Clark.
Thiz has got Karlaftis because he can see his he's starting to see his production.
Yeah, I'm stuck. I want to give mine to either Snead or McDuffie. I think the entire backfield, all the corners today played super well. I really do think that. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it to Snead because of the interception. He said in a post game in his in the locker room that he told his kid he was going to have an interception, and then to come out today and then get it.
That's awesome.
The little anecdotes that come out of locker room interviews. I thought that was cool. But McDuffie, that was his coming through and getting the sack fumble. That's a play that a defensive end makes. I can't think of a corner coming through and making a play like that.
Sneed.
And yeah, so the way Spags is able to use the corners in these blitzes, I don't know if there's another team that even comes close to it. So I'm going to give mine to Sneed just because he got the interception. But that Trent McDuffie fumble was so important to not allowing the momentum of the game to switch. And then the Sneed interception led to a Chiefs score. So both of those things they were really important plays on the day. And I'm going to give it to Sneed, but McDuffie deserves a shout out.
Yeah, definitely. I think the entire defense deserves a shout out today. They played really well for the most part. I mean, they all played well. Look, you're playing a divisional team. No matter how bad they are, you're still playing a divisional team.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. We struggled really against. I can't say we struggled, but we had a tough fight with the Chargers, and of course Denver twice now, even though they're not good. Although they do have a great defense, so it's hard to doubt a team when you played top five defenses this year and you beat every one of those teams. I don't know, man, and one of them twice.
And
it's hard.
Sorry, JP, but to add to what you say, I mean, when you look at these teams, the Chiefs have played all these great defenses. Some of them they've blown out. Some of them they have done just enough. You need those games because when you get into the playoffs, as Quinn said, that narrow victories against smaller, and then be playing against a little bit more difficult opponents. So I think at the end of the day, what we're going to see that these games are lessons learned that are going to help the Chiefs. So when they get to the playoffs, they're not going to flutter out like a Bills team could, or like a Vikings, or like a Packers, or like a Bengals, like we've seen teams in the past. I think the Chiefs understand kind of what they know what to do. They have been to where they lost in the final seconds. They have won a Super Bowl. They have lost a Super Bowl. They have basically lost a game they shouldn't have lost in the playoffs. And I think having all this experience are now understand, okay, this is what we need to do. And because of that, I think it's going to help the team kind of moving forward in the future.
I agree. One last thing. So apparently, and I haven't watched it yet, but Travis Kelce on his New Heights show said that Andy Reid calls all of the plays in every game. Well, that was brought up by another group on Twitter, and we know that's not true because Andy and Eric Bieniemy have both said that each one of them call plays.
Well, and you can see on the sideline that Bieniemy is talking in with the play sheet up. So
exactly.
So he's the one that's. I mean, look, I get it. I mean, I understand that Kelce has to say these things because you don't want to down anybody as a player, and that's the professional thing to do. But we know that's not true. We know that Bieniemy calls plays. We know that now during these last two games, Andy has had the majority of the play calls. I do know that. Well, I'll put it this way. Andy is feeding the play calls, and they have to be called, especially in this last game. Bieniemy did call plays today, but they were Andy's plays. He made sure that, he called what Andy wanted. There was one time, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, one of his plays was overruled, and he was pissed about it. And you can see him on the sidelines. I saw that. Yeah, he complained about it, and then Mahomes, of course, did Mahomes things. Ended up being a phenomenal play, and I think it ended up being a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. But he was upset. He was shaking his head, throwing out a few cuss words, threw his hand up in the air like this, pointing, like that. And it ended up being a different play than he called. So we know that's not the case. We know that they both call plays, and that's just part of Kelce being a professional. It is what it is.
Yeah, he's picking and choosing his battles. So
yeah, I mean you have to do that. You have to. You don't have a choice. But for anybody to actually believe that, come on, man. I mean, we know that's not true. Every offensive coordinator in the league has play calling rights, unless it's not in your contract. If you're a first-year offensive coordinator that's never done it before, you may not have it, any. But No, he calls plays, and it's in his contract that he can. So we'll just leave that alone from this point on. But today I noticed that there was a particular play that he wanted. I believe Andy overruled it, and so did Mahomes, and it irritated the hell out of Bieniemy. And he was mad on the sidelines, and he was actually mad when the play actually worked that he didn't call, or that was not the one that he actually wanted. So you got to have look. I've had guys. We had Tom on the show, and Tom has said, you got to have guys that are screamers that get pissed and go off on you and all that. And you may need that. I mean, to a degree, you may, but I still don't think you have the level of respect that most offensive coordinators have from between from a teammate standpoint, from a player standpoint, and that's going back a couple of years now. So, he's got an opportunity again to be a head coach this year. I kind of hope he gets one, to be honest with you. I really hope he gets one.
Yeah, get that extra draft pick.
We get that extra draft pick. He gets out of Kansas City, and we'll see how it goes from there. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. So we will see how things play out after he's gone. And I do hope he gets a job, for not just for our sake, but for his. He's had 23 interviews, including college, 24 including college, and he's been turned down for every one of them. And one that he was going to take, Deion took. And that was a college, but he does look at it as moving backwards. He thinks he's moving backwards by going to a college team. I don't see it when you're going to make an extra $2 or $3 million a year than a head coach in the NFL would. I think it's just putting money in your pocket. But from a career standpoint, maybe you're looking at going backwards. I don't know. The one thing that I explained to somebody the other day is that it's very difficult for a lifetime college coach to step into the NFL realm. We've seen it happen numerous times and fail, but when you have a coach that comes out of the NFL, goes into college, and then comes back, they're usually really successful because they know both sides of it. The Harbaughs, the Pete Carrolls, guys like that really know football on both sides, they can get away with that. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But we got another season getting ready to come up. So our second season starts in a couple weeks, so we got to be prepared for that. But with that being said, hell of a game.
I've got my believe it or not summary for Caleb and I. I know you weren't there, JP.
No, I was not. Let's hear it.
So we were correct on the sacks, Caleb.
Yes.
Chiefs ended the game with 4 sacks, and Pacheco did not go for the over 80 yards for scrimmage yards again. So his streak ends there. And the Chiefs did turn the ball over. So we that was a 3-leg parlay. We got 1 leg, and we were almost correct on the score. If the Broncos hadn't scored that last touchdown, we would have been right there. But because we both had 17, so we were pretty close on the scores, and but we got there with the sacks.
So I guess I'm betting since we just really won $5. It's okay. A win's a win there.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is.
Well, with that being said, hey, this show is being brought to you by Foco Sports. Make sure you go on to our website, check out the new 50th anniversary bobbleheads. We have one of them I can show you now really quick. It'll pop up on the screen, or it should. And there's a set of 4 right now. You've got Patrick Mahomes, you've got Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, and let me see if this one will show. Oh, for some reason, it's not popping up. I don't know what happened.
Was the first one on the list you showed earlier?
Oh, here it is. Yeah, here you go. That's
nice.
That's really cool. That is a 50th anniversary. It's one of 150 that are out, so you're not going to be able to get very many of them. And there are 4 of them. So, like I said, you've got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, and Lynn Dawson. So make sure you check out foco.com on our website and on our Twitter page. With that being said, we appreciate everybody. Oh, one last note. Almost forgot. I've got a head cold. We are now syndicated our website is syndicated. So you can catch us on yardbarker.com. We are moving into the fast track. We are the only Chiefs syndicated site. So make sure you get in and check out all the stuff through Yardbarker and through our website directly. There are going to be some changes coming up on the website fairly soon, within about the next 10 days. We're just making some improvements on the website, along with some more advertising that's coming along with it, and some more cool things that are coming out that you won't find anywhere else. So that being said, it's a pretty big accomplishment for us for being, really a 1-year website. And they reached out to us, and out of all the Chiefs websites out there, they chose us to be their syndicated site. And I think that's pretty, it says a lot about all the work that's everybody's putting in, and all the hard work that all the writers do, and the great content that they put out. So make sure you check it all out. We really appreciate what you guys have been doing, and we're just going up from there. With that being said, we will talk to you guys on Tuesday. Now, we are going to be doing weekly shows, daily shows during the week. They're going to be at 2 o'clock Central Time. They are live shows, and you'll be able to get your questions in, and we're going to be on a lot more platforms moving forward. And we're going to have other genres coming in as well. But make sure you give us a follow, and we will talk to you guys again on really Monday. We appreciate it. Thank you. Peace out.